It is Friday, Whisper Nation, and we are back here. It's your boys, the Fantasy Whisperers. I got Big Travie on the other mic with me. Austin is out today. We're going to be going over the latest injury concerns to get you prepared this weekend for that victory. All that, we'll be doing some Q&A at the end of the show, so make sure you stick around for that. All that, and if you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe and hit that bell on the way in. All right, you already know what to do, Travis. Kick that intro.
Right here.
That's right. Like Johnny said, we're going to be talking the news and notes. We're going to be talking about injury concerns. We're going to be talking about a little Q&A for your lineups this week. A lot of big news coming out. But if you like that fresh fantasy football content, you want more of it, hit that subscribe on your way in. Give this video a like and let us know where you're watching from and what you need this weekend to help you win your lineups. I am Big Travie. You can find me on Twitter at BigTravieTFW. I am joined, as always, by Johnny Gametime Hicks. You can find him on Twitter at Johnny_Gametime. Our boy Austin is over in Mexico having a good time with family and friends.
Mexico.
So I hope that he has a great time down there, but we'll hold it down for you guys and help you get ready for this Week 5 slate of games. Johnny, last night, we'll start with this. I mean, last night we saw that Thursday night football matchup, and we thought we had a lot of high hopes for this one. Didn't really come to fruition for the most part, but our boy, Bobby Trees, I got to give you props here. You called your shot with it. You backed it up with a couple trades in a couple leagues, and it came through for you in a big way last night.
Yeah, dude, Bobby Trees getting back on track. I loved it. I loved seeing it. It was my Thirsty Thursday call, so love seeing him get on the board. But, man, we got to talk. DK, is Gino the real deal?
Well, Gino looked good. He started 7 for 7, was hitting DK.
You were in the crowd chanting Gino, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I have Russell Wilson in a few leagues, including the listener league, where we've got him as one of our quarterbacks. So we need Russ to get back. Obviously, Russell Wilson had a finger dislocation. Russell Wilson has never missed a start in his NFL career. That is in jeopardy here if he is forced to miss action. We will be talking about next week on the waiver wire options to replace Russell Wilson. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're over there subscribed over on the website so you get that as well. I want to say what's up to everybody here in the chat. Corey Bolt coming in saying awesome call on Bobby Trees, Johnny. He appreciates that. We appreciate everybody in here. If you get this, the likes up here and help us grow the channel, we would greatly appreciate it. A couple other housekeeping notes on the Thursday night game here. Darrell Henderson really got the work that we thought he would get, was robbed of a touchdown by Sony Michel, who worked in tandem. But, yeah, Darrell Henderson, 17 carries, 82 yards and a touchdown, had one reception for 17 yards. But then again, Sony Michel got 11 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown himself. I do think this is how it's going to run as long as Henderson is healthy. We're going to see a good amount of work out of Darrell Henderson. And Gus Ramos, man, I played Lockett. He could have done better. Gus, I'm with you. I thought Lockett had the matchup, and there were a couple times where Lockett just missed it. He had the touchdown before the half, was wiped off because of holding. He was missed on a deep route by Russ that he was wide open on. Could have definitely got him.
And then he had the long bomb that he almost pulled in, but then had the pass interference. Yeah, I mean,
fell down on the last play. It was just kind of a bad luck night for Gus for Gus and for Tyler Lockett. Yeah,
it was one of those games in which you're like, as a fantasy player, like, man, I should get if I could get all the yards that was just headed that direction towards that wide receiver, he would have had himself a day. Because Tyler Lockett was getting a lot of shots down the field.
Yeah, so we have Matt Stafford kind of had a ho-hum day here. It was a little bit of a divisional defensive battle. Still got over 360 yards in this game. Threw a touchdown, but threw a pick. Looked a little bit off in this one. Had a finger issue himself. But check this out, Johnny. Better days ahead for Stafford. The Giants, the Lions, the Texans, and the Titans are his next 4 opponents. Giddy up for Matt Stafford and the passing attack with the Rams. And then obviously your boy, man, Robert Woods, 12 of 14 for 150 yards. Look, I think, Johnny is trying to say that maybe, Cooper Kupp's sitting in the back seat. Kupp himself also got 10 targets, 7 receptions, 92 yards, was missed on a touchdown here. Got right down to the 1, which gave Sony Michel that plunge in. So
I was really hoping they were going to do that little two-handed touch thing, to Woods, because Woods does the motion. And so I was really hoping he was going to get that. That would have been really nice. But unfortunately, Sony came and vultured that tutty.
And just so we know, like we're upset with Tyler Lockett. Wish he could have done more. Still 10 targets on the game, so he out-targeted DK Metcalf 2-1, and easily could have had a touchdown in this one. Did have one wiped off by the offensive holding. DK Metcalf went 5 of 5 for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. We liked that. We especially liked his chemistry with Geno. What looked like at the end of the game. So if Geno Smith has to keep rolling through. And then we've got a situation with Alex Collins, 15 carries, 47 yards in relief. 2 of 3 receiving for 25 yards. Didn't look as explosive as he had been in the last few games, but we still will roll with Collins with confidence if Carson is out. So I think that waiver ad is a good one for those that did it. Yep. Geno Smith basically scored Russell Wilson by about a half a point in less action. Was more productive than Russ Wilson. Apparently, this offense only gets cooking when Geno Smith is in. No, they were in comeback mode, so a little bit different of a situation here for Geno.
What was hilarious was like the moment Geno comes in, he gets 2 passes, right? And then all of a sudden, Troy Aikman was like, "Oh, first it was Russell Wilson cooking. Now they got Geno cooking." And it was like, bro, he had 2 passes. Like, you're already saying he's cooking. And
he was, though. He was dealing out there. He looked confident. He looked ready for his shot. And that's what we basically saw there. We'll monitor the situation with Russ. Russ is a rehab nut. I remember a couple years ago when his start streak was in jeopardy, he had the ankle, right? He was waking up every 3 hours to rehab. I remember him saying that. So he is a guy who's definitely not going to want to let his streak die here, but it's something to monitor. What I do think could be interesting here is if Russ does take a little bit of a back seat. He does play, but he takes a little bit of a back seat. They run more. He could actually run more, which could bring his floor a little bit up if that's how he wants to attack this. So we'll see how that breaks down. Corey says, I needed 2 more yards from DK for the bonus point, but definitely can't complain about his night. Yes, you cannot, because DK went 5 of 5 for 98 and 2 touchdowns. Looked like a man out there. And that kind of wraps up our coverage here. Oh, I do want to just touch quickly, going back to the Rams really quick. Tyler Higby, only 2 targets, 2 receptions, had a nice touchdown, saved your day. You like to see him get a little bit more involved, but again, squeaky wheel was the situation for Robert Woods. So I think these secondary pieces beyond Cup are maybe something that's going to alternate between Woods, Higby, Van Jefferson, all these other pieces. So just continue to monitor that, but Woods is going to have some nice matchups going forward, as is the rest of the Rams offense. Yes. All right, Johnny. That does it for the Thursday Night Football matchup. It's time to get into some of these news and notes. And so, guys, we're going to continue to give you this advice all through. We're going to try and work through some of these news and notes. But remember, if you have any questions, keep them coming in. We'll get to them at the end of the show and try to rattle those off as fast as we can. We appreciate every single one of you in the chat. Continue to keep rocking with us and help us by hit that like button and let us know where you're at. And if you're new to the channel, Good Game MF says, nice video, guys. Appreciate you. Corey Bolt says, cheers, guys. Gus Ramos says, Seattle is like a restaurant in Kitchen Nightmares where they cook, but they use a microwave.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like that. I like that one.
All right, we got to start with the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to go alphabetically through the teams. We know a lot of news for Christian McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, some other guys out there, but we're going to work through the teams alphabetically. And like I said, we'll get to your questions as we can at the end of the show. Chase Edmonds for the Arizona Cardinals, Johnny, was a late add and now is a game-time decision for Week 5 against the 49ers. Edmonds injured his shoulder in the second half of Sunday's blowout over the Rams and is listed as questionable despite failing to practice throughout the week. So here's where we're at with Chase Edmonds. Hasn't practiced all week, is a true game-time decision. How do we feel about Edmonds? Where's our confidence level, Johnny, in this one?
I do ultimately think he gives it a go. That's just my hunch and gut feeling. But if he doesn't, and if he does go, I'm throwing him in as an RB2 high with RB1 upside. If he get in the end zone, good matchup. But if he can't go, full steam ahead for James Conner. You're getting him in your lineup as the same kind of thing. RB2 with RB1 upside.
Johnny, we're moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, who will be the home team in the London game on 6:30 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. Make sure you wake up, get your tea and crumpets, and watch that one. Johnny, we have both wide receivers, Russell Gage and Calvin Ridley, not making the trip with the team. Russell Gage for a personal matter, Calvin Ridley for a personal matter. Russell Gage with an ankle How is this an upgrade for the pass catchers, and which parts of the Atlanta offense do you think this upgrades for?
I think the biggest boost obviously would go to Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts already seeing a healthy share in that passing core. I do think he would get a couple more options now with Ridley being out. I do think as well, this is what's going to be, and that's what I kind of speculated to. Don't know any insight, like I haven't gotten this from insiders or anything, but this is just something we talked about, Travis. I have a feeling like because of this injury, they could then move Cordero Patterson to the wide receiver slot and then use both Gallman and Mike Davis as the 1-2 running back, with Gallman being the early down guy, then Mike Davis kind of taking that Cordero Patterson role, and then Cordero returning to wide receiver for this game. Which doesn't make me all as much excited as I was before when he was kind of being used all over the field. But again, those are just some speculations on what I'm thinking. The Jets are actually surprisingly good against the wide receiver. So you want Cordell to kind of be that running back because that's where they're most susceptible. But with Ridley not being in there, it will be interesting to see what the game plan is. But a slight boost to Pitts and to Cordero.
I don't want to be that guy, but keep an eye on Olamide Zaccheaus here with everybody inactive. Like we could see our big OZ get out there and get some work in this game. Jets have been, letting up some shootouts against them. So I think this is an interesting stash where you maybe get ahead of the waiver wire next week.
These London games are always weird too because of the body shifting and the time difference. It's
the body shift. Yes.
Weird things happen.
Weird things happen in Johnny's body when he gets up at 6:30 a.m. to watch this.
You know it. Anyone who's gotten up that early knows it.
All right, Whisper Nation, if you like that fresh fantasy football content, hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe. Let us know you're new to the channel. We'll continue to keep rocking with you as we work through these news and notes and these player updates. One of the biggest ones of the week was with Carolina and Christian McCaffrey. Johnny, he started practicing again this week, and then he told reporters, when they asked, he said he could definitely have a chance to play yesterday when they asked him. And then basically they said, nope, he's doubtful. Basically, the Carolina Panthers said, we don't care what you think, Christian McCaffrey. You're doubtful in this one. So, Johnny, when I look at this particular matchup, it's definitely going to be a Cuba Hubbard week. Again, he saw 15 touches against the Cowboys. They got a little bit scripted out. I don't think that happens in this one as they play the Philadelphia Eagles, Johnny. I think this actually could be a decent matchup for our guy Cuba Hubbard here. And when we look at it, Philly, they've given up the second most rushing yards and sixth most fantasy points to running backs in 2021. So I like Cuba Hubbard in this particular game. Obviously, we're rolling with DJ Moore and those other guys.
3.5 point favorites too. So you could game script would say that they could end up leaning on the run a little bit more in this game.
Absolutely. Moving on to the Chicago Bears. We know that Andy Dalton wasn't listed on the final injury report, but it didn't matter because they've named Justin Fields the starter going forward. Again, we've had Darnell Mooney as a limited practice. We think he's going to go. We obviously have David Montgomery out, which means Damian Williams in. Really, with the Bears, we're going to be watching intently. I don't know how much I trust Fields here. I do think in this Vegas matchup, it's interesting to watch, Johnny, what could happen as with Bill Lazor calling the shots and Fields named the starter. But we love Damian Williams in this matchup. He's fired up with David Montgomery out and the Vegas being a very good matchup against enemy running backs. So that's a situation we're attacking, in daily and in our redraft leagues. Anything on the Darnell Mooney? Are you scared off of Darnell Mooney with the groin here as a limited participant through the week?
I'm not scared off of him. I don't know if I'm throwing him in my lineup and trusting him this week, but I do want to stash him because there seems to be a rapport. He could be the one right there in Chicago because Allen Robinson on his last year of that contract, they could, kind of see and want to see what they have in Mooney as like that number one, or if they need to draft a one, or if they need to re-sign Robinson. So I do like what I'm seeing from Mooney. I like that rapport, but he's not one I trust in my lineup quite yet.
Yeah, especially with the groin. It's a pretty sticky situation here.
Yeah.
And the Cincinnati Bengals side of the ball, and I do see some questions in there. Jason, you have a great trade question. We will get to that towards the end of the show. We're definitely going to, do that. So hang tight with us. Maybe give us a sub, and we'll continue to move through these player news and notes, which is the Cincinnati Bengals. And there's a couple things here. T. Higgins looking like he's going to play, so we like that. I think this is a decent matchup against Green Bay. Banged up secondary right now, banged up defense. And it's a 50-point over-under. So I don't mind rolling with Higgins out there coming back from that shoulder injury. He's going to play. We know the Bengals are going to probably be without Joe Mixon, who, well, actually, Zach Taylor saying that Mixon will practice Saturday and is questionable to see if he's going to be able to go. I don't think it's looking great for Mixon. He hasn't really done a lot of work this week, and they have said they're going to use a committee if he's out, which means Chris Evans, Samaje Perine mixing in there. And so how do we feel about if Mixon goes? Are you starting Joe Mixon here?
If he ends up going, then yeah, I would start him because I doubt that they would have that kind of I think that if they would want to hold him out, or if there were any doubts as to the capacity that he could go, they would just hold him out. So I do think that if he is in your lineup, he's probably going in there, most likely because you don't have a better option. But I mean, let me ask you, would you do Cordero Patterson or Joe Mixon this week if Joe Mixon goes?
I might be taking Patterson in this one. Green Bay's defense been a little bit better against the run this year than they have been in the past. And Mixon on the ankle, it's just not very trusting for me. You see Ridley out. That could mean more increased touches for Patterson. That's how I would kind of play that one there. All right, Johnny, moving on. We have with the Cleveland Browns, we heard about Baker Mayfield and his shoulder this week, been playing with the harness, obviously dealing with that. Any concern here with Baker as far as OBJ and maybe Kareem Hunt with the shoulder, or are you continuing to roll out some of these Cleveland playmakers due to just basically volume?
I'm still throwing him out because of volume, and it's not his throwing shoulder. If it was his throwing shoulder, I'd have a little bit more of a problem with it, or I'd have more, reluctancy in throwing those guys out there. However, he's been dealing with this for a couple of games now. And yeah, he seems to be off with OBJ, but they've always had this kind of connection kind of issue. I can't wait until they can get it right. But yeah, as of right now, I'm still okay throwing OBJ out as a wide receiver 3 with high upside flex play there. And Hunt, same kind of situation.
Moving on to the Dallas Cowboys, Johnny, we have a situation here I want to touch on quickly with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had the hamstring that caused him to miss, basically play 50% of the snaps against Carolina. He missed the first portion of the game, came back in, scored a touchdown. When asked about his ribs and his hamstring, basically Amari Cooper said, "Pain ain't no thing. I got this. Don't worry about it."
Ezekiel Elliott. He did the Jimmy Butler.
Ezekiel Elliott, on the other hand, probably even less concerned about Ezekiel Elliott, because he said he's not concerned at all about the knee that made him pop up on the injury report, saying that a lot of the stiffness is gone after having a few days to heal, or maybe a few shots. We'll see what's going on there. But I do like Ezekiel Elliott in this matchup. He should smash against the Giants here. I also like Amari Cooper as a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside against the Giants as well. Johnny, moving on to the Denver Broncos, we know that Teddy Bridgewater is looking like on track to play, which is good news for our pass catchers and our offensive pieces in Denver, although the backs will be facing a tough test against Pittsburgh. Are we firing up our Cortland Sutton, our Tim Patrick, and our Noah Fant in this one?
I would still do Cortland Sutton. I would still fire him up, but I wouldn't any secondary pieces I wouldn't be firing up. Not too excited about it.
So the Detroit Lions are having pretty much all of their players that matter hurt. They're going to be out maybe 3 linemen in this game, but maybe more importantly, TJ Hawkinson is a true questionable to play with his knee. He's missed a few practices, and he is basically they said he has a chance to play this week. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound good. It doesn't paint a good picture as chance to play as opposed to like a guy who was lined up. Maybe some contingency plans for TJ Hawkinson at tight end. I know you spoke about on our matchup show, you like Evan Ingram and maybe even Zach Ertz as a potential flyer tight end to get into your lineup. Mo Alley Cox is another one because Baltimore giving up the most points to tight ends. Yeah. So that's something to be aware of. How are you feeling about this situation with TJ Hawkinson?
I don't like it. Like you said, I don't like the quote unquote chance he plays. I would like, especially when this isn't what that coaching staff has done in the past with TJ, right? They've said whenever this is happening, oh yeah, he's hurt, but he's definitely playing. This was the first time it was like, oh, he has a chance not to play. Now it could be coaching talk and trying to throw off, the defense here. But I hope he does play. If he plays, I'm getting him in my lineup because it's hard to find a better tight end with higher upside, other than the top 2 or top 3. But this is concerning. TJ is a big piece of that offense.
Absolutely, and I think it would be an increase to maybe a guy in Khalif Raymond, who is a guy who's been popping up here over the last couple of weeks, increased usage. I think he's a very deep flex play here, especially if Hawkinson were not able to go. You look at Minnesota, their secondary has not been very good. Also, though, Jamal Williams popping up on the injury report with a hip, Johnny, as a limited. They're just banged up everywhere.
Yeah, dude.
Any concern here? It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal, but if Williams were to go, I mean, that could be huge news for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, if Williams isn't a go and it's just all DeAndre Swift show, oh yeah, sign me up for that. Oh man, unlocking the whole entire cheat code there with DeAndre Swift would be absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, like you said, I don't expect us to keep Williams out.
All right, Johnny, we're talking about the Green Bay Packers next. Aaron Jones has been limited with an ankle. He's going to continue to be limited with that ankle. Obviously, there's injuries along the defensive side for Green Bay. That's why this is probably a 50-point over-under, and Green Bay only favored by 3 on the road. As far as Aaron Jones, even in last week where we saw A.J. Dillon get more involved, we saw Aaron Jones handle all the red zone work, all the goal line work, most of the pass down work. So we are still confident as ever in Aaron Jones. Maybe not as ever, but we're definitely more confident in Aaron Jones here. It seems to be more of a workload management. So continue to roll out your shares of Aaron Jones in a great matchup against the Bengals here. I would spend time talking about the Houston Texans if we cared at all about what was going on outside of Brandon Cooks, but we don't. So we're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts here. Sorry for all you Texans fans in the chat. I know there's probably plenty of you.
Better days ahead.
Yeah. As we look at the Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz ankles will return to full practice for Thursday for the first time since week 1. So we like that for maybe that. These ankles could be getting better, which I didn't know could be possible if you're continuing to play and put, reps on them. But it looks like Wentz is working through rehab quite nicely. Does that give you enough confidence, Johnny, in a full practice for a guy like maybe Michael Pittman, who's seen some good targets?
I do think Pittman ends up being a decent wide receiver 3 flex play for you this week. He's had a consistent amount of targets with Wentz under center. You like Wentz under center for him, and he seems to really have that kind of like go-to knack with Pitts. So or not Pitts, excuse me, with Pittman. And so I definitely think that depending on what wide receivers you have, I think that you could do a lot worse than going with Michael Pittman, who's seen red zone targets in 3 out of his 4 games, I believe. Sorry, I could bet that.
Well, and then he's coming into last week, saw 24 targets in weeks 2 and 3. So he's definitely a guy that Wentz looks to and goes to. So I think it's definitely worth like a flex appeal in this one against Baltimore, who's been a little bit more stout against the run than they have against the pass. I see your questions popping off in the chat. Want to appreciate every single one of you guys in here, giving you a big ups. You guys are huge, and you guys are why we continue to do this and chase this stream. We will get to your questions shortly, working through some of the news and notes for this week, and we will continue to do so with Nahim Hines, who did not practice on Thursday. We'll see what happens today as news comes out, but something to monitor with Hines as he was a late add to the injury report, Johnny.
Yeah, definitely something to monitor. We talked about this on the matchup breakdown show, where if Nahim Hines is actually playing in this game, which I do think he ends up playing, it didn't seem like the shoulder injury was a huge concern. I actually would play him as a flex play in this game because of the potential shootout, one, and the fact that when you see these teams, or you see the Indianapolis Colts play a team where they were most likely going to have to come from behind, that's when Nahim Hines snap shares go up and he becomes a playable option for you.
Outside of the news of DJ Shark for the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's not a ton of injury news, but there is a couple puff pieces. Obviously, Urban Meyer dealing with some situations where he went out partying and grinding on some young blonde chick. But we'll talk a little bit about what the fantasy football implications are here, because Urban Meyer saying, Johnny, that he loves tight end Dan Arnold. Obviously, they traded away a really talented cornerback to go get him, so I understand that. I understand why he would say he loves him. I don't understand why you do that trade. Laviska Shenault also is said by Darrell Bevell to have a bigger role with DJ Shark fractured ankle out. So, Johnny, are you buying any of this Dan Arnold and Laviska Shenault hype here out of Jacksonville? Especially ahead of this matchup.
Yeah, Dan Arnold, underrated tight end. Do I think he's going to be this major barn burner? I don't. But, we look at Darrell Bevell and that offense. They do use the tight end. They target the tight end quite significantly, actually. So it is, being a little bit of a new offense with 3 weapons before and no real tight end. They weren't really getting that involved in the scheme. But now that Chark is down, I do expect Dan Arnold to be a little bit more involved. Now, am I starting him or going to keep him as a stash? I'm not. I want to see it first, but I do believe in the uptick for Laviska. I talked about this also on the matchup show, how he didn't see a game higher than 40 air yards in a single game before the Chark injury. Then the Chark injury happened. He saw over 90 air yards in last week's game, which is what you would, is very indicative of the position that he's playing. He's stretching the field. You like that? They'll take some dart throws with them.
You like that?
You like that. So I do. I actually think Laviska now is one of those guys that he's on the up and the up. I would break out.
Yeah, I think that's a great call for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not huge news here, but Josh Gordon activated from the practice squad. He will make his debut Sunday night in a projected shootout here. Any kind of what the heck flex value here for Josh Gordon, or do you need to see it first, Johnny?
I need to see it first. This is not talk about the Buffalo Bills defense. Like, I know it's projected as a shootout. We'll see what ends up happening, but this Bills defense is way different than the Bills defense of last year. These guys are giving up very little as far as touchdown receptions and things like that. So I would stay clear of Josh this week. If you really wanted to go that route or see where he's at, what I would advise is to go about your normal business on Sunday morning, afternoon, watch those games. Then I would, if he's available on your waiver, I would go and pick him up before the Sunday night game with whatever player, was a dud for you, or you could pick back up if you need to as a stash for Josh Gordon. Other than that, I'm not really planning on keeping him on my roster.
We'd like to keep Whisper Nation on our roster because we love each and every one of you in the chat right now. So hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe, and let us know if you're new to the channel. We will continue to put those fantasy football questions in. We're about to wrap up the news and notes here, and then we will get to those questions. So continue to pour those questions in and keep rocking with us as we work through the news. Our next piece of news involves the Las Vegas Raiders. Josh Jacobs practiced in full on Thursday. And so, Johnny, we're looking at Josh Jacobs as a volume monster when he gets in here, even up against tough matchups and even in positions where they could game script him out. They continue to not do so. They like Jacobs as the focal point of this rushing attack. Do you like Jacobs against the Bears this week? Did you mute yourself? You muted me. You muted yourself. That's how much he doesn't like Jacobs.
Yes, I mute. Yeah, exactly. Make me choke myself. The thing with Jacobs is that he saw 5 targets in last week's game, and Kenyon Drake didn't see any targets, which was very unusual because we had seen that through the first few weeks that Kenyon Drake was the third down scat back kind of receiving back, and he only got 1 carry last week. They completely leaned on Josh Jacobs. So I do think that if Josh Jacobs gives it a go, I think that you can play him as your RB2 this week. He's going to get the volume. He's most likely going to get the goal line work. And so I do think that you could throw him in there. It is a little risky. I know it's Josh Jacobs. It's, John over there is
Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Yeah, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. No, John Gruden over there. Just he's like, knock if we with me, Kenyon Drake, you're gonna do nothing this week. And guess who knocked? Kenyon Drake. So I do think Jacobs is fine. It's not exciting.
He's fine.
I mean, you roll the dice when you throw him out there. It is risky, but
we're going to move on to the Miami Dolphins, Johnny, who have not been very good this year because of the Tua injury and among other reasons. But the big news for them this week, obviously, Will Fuller placed on the IR with the broken finger. But Devonte Parker has a sore hamstring per Brian Flores, their head coach, and says he could be a game-time decision. He's listed as questionable after limited practices this week. He's in a great matchup. Tampa Bay is they're just getting gashed at the wide receiver position. But we obviously don't really trust Brissett that much. I don't know if I'm trusting Parker even in this great matchup. I would actually love Waddle's position in this one because he's going to be in a team. He's going to be against this Tampa Bay team that's going to be just they're going to need to throw in this one. I would love to get Waddle in my flex if I could, especially in PPR. I think he's going to get peppered with targets, especially with the re-injury risk we have with Devonte Parker here. So I would be concerned with Parker, and I would be okay flexing Jalen Waddle. Minnesota, Johnny, brings us to Dalvin Cook, one of the bigger names in fantasy football. He's questionable, labeled as a game-time decision by his head coach, Mike Zimmer, after he failed to practice at any point throughout this week. Obviously, if you are a Madison roster, you are holding on to him and looking to just absolutely get him in your lineup, because we know three things in this life, Johnny: death, taxes, and Detroit is the best matchup for your fantasy running back. And it's been that way for the last few years. You're going to continue to roll out Madison or Cook regardless of what happens. And I think even if Cook goes, Johnny, in a game where Minnesota should handle quite well, you're going to roll with Madison even if Cook goes, because they're going to probably split on Cook's ankle. I can't see Cook playing in this game. Why, if you're Minnesota, would you play Cook in this game? You can handle Detroit as it is. Let him rest. Let the ankle get right. Call the shots here. Make him inactive and go with Madison. But even if Cook goes, guys, Whisper Nation, I'm strong on Madison as a flex play, because I think he'll get some usage in a game that they should take care of Detroit pretty handedly.
Interesting theory. It's like wherever I have Dalvin, I also have Madison. So it's like from that,
you don't want to play both. Yeah.
Well, and you're like you said, you're kind of hoping like, oh, just sit.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
This is such a juicy matchup. If you can get Madison like the whole time as the only running back, then that's going to be so juicy. But like you said, if Cook goes, then you're going to be having to make some lineup decisions in game. But I do like the call on Madison no matter what. That's a good play.
Johnny, on the New York Giants, the New York Football Giants side of the ball, we have Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard announced as out. They will not make it.
Go get Tony.
Pick him up, Darius Tony here? Do you like him playing him this week?
Yes.
What about Kenny G, who was limited with a groin, but actually had a nice, decent week last week?
Had a decent week last week, but this week gets Trayvon Diggs, brother of Stephon Diggs, who has just been shutting people down. So I'm staying away from Kenny G, but you look at Dallas giving up like the third most fantasy points to wide receivers. Where does that all go? To the wide receiver 2 or the slot wide receiver, which is why I believe Tony is worth the what the heck flex this week if you need a wide receiver.
Whisper Nation, we need you to continue to rock with us and help us get over to 3,000 subs on YouTube. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, turning your notifications on, and continuing to rock with us. We will get to rocking with those questions at the end of this show. We are just about wrapped up with the news and notes, and then we will continue to power through some of these questions you guys have. Not much on the New York Jets side of the ball, so we'll move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, who, really there's not a lot here other than lineman issues. Lane Johnson is going to be out, so that could be some, again, spelling trouble for Miles Sanders, Johnny, who continues to kind of disappoint us here. Anything there on the Philly side of the ball that you're, are you starting either Gainwell or Sanders this week?
I think I would start Gainwell over Sanders, looking at game script and how that could go and what generally happens when the game script gets from behind. Gainwell's that guy that normally comes in, and they like Gainwell. So that's kind of where I would lean if, Sanders, the fall and the heart, like going from down low on him to all of a sudden for the first couple of weeks, we were like, oh, did we majorly get this wrong? To right back, no, we were right. It's a scary situation. And Sanders definitely a better running back than is projecting right now. But they're just not using him enough.
Johnny says a scary situation. I mean, it's about to be Halloween around the corner. Yeah. And nothing is scarier than that Pittsburgh Steelers passing attack right now. And Big Ben, talk about head, shoulders, knees, and toes, like Juju Smith-Schuster ribs, Chase Claypool hamstring, Big Ben pectoral and hip. Like, this team is banged up right now. We're not trusting any of Ben, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. And the Steelers quoted this week as saying, heck no on benching Ben Roethlisberger. The Steelers can be summed up in two players, Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris. If you got them, you're starting them. That's how you should treat the Pittsburgh Steelers for the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, I think that Chase Claypool's a hold based on where they use him in the field. But until we can see more out of Ben, it's not anybody you can start right now.
Yep.
All right, so Jimmy Garoppolo for the San Francisco 49ers. not likely to play here, which means absolutely Trey Lance is
Your
in
boy.
the lineup for the San Francisco 49ers, and I think he should be in your lineup over pretty much other than that Jalen Hurts cutoff. You know, when we're looking at QB 7-ish, I think that's where you can start to put in other guys over Trey Lance, but I'm starting him over guys like Herbert. I'm starting him over guys like, you know, Ryan Tannehill. I'm starting him over guys like Sam Darnold. Some of these other guys in good matchups that have played well, but Trey Lance's upside is so much that with the rushing ability. I mean, Johnny, in 30 minutes of action, he scored 20 fantasy points. He's really a guy that we want to take a look at here. Johnny, George Kittle not practicing with the calf on Thursday. Also, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't practice. We'll need to continue to monitor this. Elijah Mitchell limited in practice with his shoulder, but shed the non-contact jersey. Talk to me quickly about these three players and their effect on what you would look at in the San Francisco attack here.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at Debo. Obviously, that matchup right there. Cardinals defense is susceptible to wide receivers and yardage. They give up a lot of them. So watching that matchup, obviously, Ayuk, how much is he involved? Not looking to start him this week. And yeah, the concern with Kittle, you're going to get him in your lineup because there's always that high upside. But actually, Arizona doing quite well against the tight end this year. So not the greatest matchup for George Kittle, but again, it's harder to find a better option for you to start at tight end than a guy like George Kittle. So definitely watching those. I think they'll be fine. Do I think they're going to score a lot of touchdowns this weekend? I don't. I think this Cardinals defense is pretty good, and the way that they get up on teams and then really use that pass rush, I think it'll be a long day. I think one of these wide receivers will pop off, but I don't think multiple of them will. I think it's going to be a heavy run game.
All right, Johnny, rounding out some of this news, Giovanni Bernard, questionable. Rob Gronkowski won't play. Anything really to report here on the Buccaneers? I think we fire up all our studs, right?
Yep, firing up all those studs.
In Tennessee, one of the biggest headlines here, Julio Jones ruled out. And A.J. Brown looking like he's going to play. He practiced again on Thursday, looked smooth reportedly in individual drills. So we're looking at A.J. Brown likely to go, Julio not going. How do you feel about A.J. Brown? You fire him up in your lineup here?
We talked about this. We gave a little bit of a name game kind of thing.
Yeah.
Would you rather? Ultimately, I'm probably going to be throwing him in my lineup if he goes. Once again, only wide receiver, especially without Julio there. I do think that he could get peppered with targets either way. So if Tennessee is willing to roll him out there, then I'm willing to play him in my lineup. Basically, unless I have elite options at the wide receiver spot.
And finally, the Washington football team is the home of Antonio Gibson, one of our favorite fantasy football players. But now he's dealing with a stress fracture in his shin that he is playing through, Johnny.
Yeah, this is wild.
He's questionable for this week, but he's been playing through this shin injury. He had the shoulder injury before, the turf toe last year. Like, there's some things that have dinged up our boy Antonio Gibson. How are we feeling? Where's our confidence level in this matchup this week? And would you be rolling him out there?
I think, I mean, he's been playing with it this whole time. So if he's been playing with it and he's been decent, it does kind of make sense that he hasn't been able to reach that ceiling that we thought that he could reach. But again, if he plays, I'm playing him. If he's out, then JD McKissick, then come on up, dude. He's been playing and showing up. So I'm fine rolling him out there if a guy like Gibson doesn't end up going.
Absolutely. Well, Whisper Nation, we thank you for rocking with us through the news and notes. We are going to start rocking through some of these questions. So hit us with a like, hit us with a subscribe if you're new to the channel.
Got some new peeps in here.
Yeah, we appreciate all the new names in here. Appreciate everybody. Good Game MFs, Corey Bolt, Gus Ramos, Jason in here. So we appreciate all your guys' questions, and we're going to get to them right now. So this one's a big one, Johnny. Trade Cooks plus Damian Harris plus Melvin for CD and Fournette or Terry and Connor. I would do this deal for the Fournette and Terry McLaurin piece.
Yes, that's what I would say.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Fournette. It's Terry McLaurin and Connor. I would actually do it for the CD and Fournette piece is what I meant here. I like Terry McLaurin, obviously getting the volume. I don't trust Connor enough to be giving up those running back pieces. But Fournette is really, like, we're not talking enough about Fournette's upside moving forward. Saw his career high with the Bucs in carries last week. And I think that is not just a a situation with the game that they played against the Patriots. I think that's something they could move towards with these injuries that are happening with the wide receivers and the tight ends. And it's something that could be we just know that Ronald Jones is not the guy for them. Fournette at least has a little bit of pass catching upside, and we saw that with Gio out. And so for me, I would actually do this deal. I think CeeDee Lamb is a buy low, and Fournette is a guy you could definitely trust to kind of replace some of the Damian Harris and Melvin Gordon output.
I do think I'm fine with CD and Fournette.
Would you do the Terry and Connor piece more?
No, what I would counter with is I would try to do Terry and Fournette, because although I don't
know if it's the same. I don't know if it's the same roster. Like it might not be the same GM. You might have two offers. If you can do that, yes. If you can do Terry and Fournette, that's the deal to do. Especially say, look, I'm giving up 2 starting running backs. I need you to kind of replace one of those with some upside here, and I think that's the way to do it. And please start selling people on Cooks and that volume, because Cooks is a value, but you can definitely get that sold to the GM right there. We've got Good Game MFs saying I would too, Jason. Between the wide receivers, Terry and Connor right now, rest of season. So yeah, I would definitely have Terry over CeeDee Lamb rest of season for sure. See if it's the same GM, try and get that deal done.
Yeah, if it's not the same GM though, I do agree with what you're saying. I would go CD and Fournette, because I do think you get something back. You need a solid running back. James Conner, not really that solid running back, doesn't have a tremendous high upside because he's just used around the goal line.
Aaron Rodriguez asking, this is a tough one, dude. Kittle or Knox in PPR. The good news is you'll know about Kittle. He's in the afternoon game, and Knox plays Sunday night, so you have a little bit of a buffer here. I do like Knox. I do like him in this matchup. Kansas City allowing, I think, the 3rd most receptions to the tight end per game, so they're definitely a PPR sieve for tight end. I think I would still roll with Kittle if he's active, just because, again, the upside, and Knox has been living on touchdowns. But I do love this matchup for Knox, and he's a great backup plan if Kittle is out.
And I think Kittle has the safer floor.
Tomas Medina from Panama says, Panama in the house. We appreciate you. Advice for my flex here. He says, half-point PPR, 16 people league. He's qualifying some of these options here. He says Olamide, Zacchaeus, Cobb, or McNichols. He also says, or Tony. And I think, Johnny, you answered this earlier with Kadarius Toney, right?
Yeah, Tony should get, 8 to 10 targets in that slot in a blow-up spot. I would go with Tony.
Aaron Rodriguez, I know it looks like you're new to the channel, man. Hit us with a sub if you don't mind, man. We'd love to have you part of Whisper Nation here. Aaron Rodriguez, he says Shenault or Jalen Waddle. Johnny, this one's tough. I think Waddle and PPR could definitely be the play, but I do like Chenault's upside here with Shark out. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, if it's PPR, I might lean Waddle, but I do think Shenault has the higher upside.
Yeah, so if it's half point or PPR, I would roll with Waddle.
Yep.
Accusing says, hey, man, what do you think if I start out of these? Who do you think I should start out of these?
4.
What 4? A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams, Jamar Chase, Hollywood Brown, Debo Samuel. It's a custom league. I only get points for touchdowns and 100 yards receiving. So who has the best shot at 100 yards receiving and a touchdown? Give me McLaurin.
Hollywood Brown.
So you're gonna take Hollywood Brown and McLaurin, then we get 2 more. So Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, or Mike Williams, which 2 out of those 3? I think Mike Williams in a tough matchup, so I'd fade him. I'd take Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown here.
Yeah, those are the ones that I was looking at as well.
He says my QBs are Herbert and Jackson. Good QBs to have there, brother.
Yeah.
Jimmy G not practicing today, says Jason. Kittle working on the side of the field last week from a Niners. Appreciate that perspective.
Appreciate you, Jason.
Julio Villa says, in a PPR league, would you trade Waller and Crowder for Debo, McKissick, Hines, and Emmanuel Sanders?
No.
He said, would you trade Crowder for McKissick?
Yes.
Yeah, I think with this news with Gibson, it's worth a pickup, especially in a PPR league. Tomas Medina says, thank you, Whispers. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you
coming in all the way. We're international now from Panama. We appreciate you. Trees and Beats says Pascal or Sermon in my flex.
Trees and Beats. Cool
I'd be going with Sermon here. I think even with Mitchell back, he's a better play than Pascal, more trustworthy in a more explodable matchup. If we know that Arizona's not good against the run, then Shanahan knows that too, and he's a guy who loves running the ball. He's going to try and pound the rock against Arizona and control the clock.
9th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers Baltimore is allowing, and they've only given up 3 receiving touchdowns on the season. Once again, if I had to pick a wide receiver for Indianapolis, it would be Pittman, because Pascal's not seeing enough targets in order to bode any confidence.
Johnny's going to pick Pittman, and if you're going to pick anybody to give you fantasy football advice, we hope it's us here at the Fantasy Whispers. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like, and give us a follow here on any platform you are with. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I'm Big Travie. That does it for the news and notes on Friday. Good luck this weekend. Tune in on Sunday for the lineup show.
Make sure if you last note real quick, if you have a game Sunday morning, you have to remember there's an early London game. Atlanta Jets. Make sure if you have any players in those, you get them in your actual lineup, not in the flex spot, so that way you leave that open for the morning games. Okay, that's just a little tip.
Trade question: which running back should I try to acquire if I'm trading away Keenan Allen, starting Hubbard this week as the CMC owner? Yeah, I think Hubbard's a great start this week. CMC probably out. This always depends. But I think there are a couple buy low candidates out there at running back, one of which is Damian Harris, whose schedule starts to open up. He's somebody I'd be interested in. Maybe Harris and something else for Keenan Allen would be something I'm looking at. And that's just one name. Again, it depends on the roster. But thank you, Jimmy Navarro, for jumping in here. Thanks for everybody jumping in here. For Johnny Game Time Hicks, I'm Big Travie. We're the Fantasy Whispers. We're out. Peace.
Peace. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're still not sold on us, check out one of these videos.